Hey doc, I've been diagnosed with prediabetes. Can I eat carbohydrates? Can I eat carbs? Doc, just tell me, can I eat carbs? We're going to be talking about prediabetes today, carbohydrate intake, one of the most misunderstood facets of physiology that is out there and leads to a lot of confusion and frustration if you're trying to learn proper nutritional principles from the internet, because there's so much conflicting information that's out there, conflicting viewpoints. And so I want to talk today about carbohydrates and prediabetes and give you some practical tips that you can take away today to be able to help you on your journey to prevent diabetes and ideally reverse prediabetes altogether. So I'm Dr. Topher Fox. I'm an endocrinologist in Superior, Colorado. And this question, can I eat carbs? Doc, I've been diagnosed with prediabetes. Can I eat carbohydrates? It's really a variation on probably the most common question that I get asked now, almost 2 decades in practice, almost variation of the most common question, which is, Doc, just tell me what to eat. What can I eat? And there's a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation that is out there about carbohydrates. And so I want to give you one key concept today and then a couple pieces of advice that hopefully will make this easier for you, help you reach your goals as you work to ideally prevent diabetes and hopefully reverse prediabetes altogether. It is very possible to do that. So the concept I want to give you is this thing called carbohydrate tolerance. If you remember, when we eat starches or sugars, so those are carbohydrates, starches and sugars, all of those ultimately get converted to glucose in our bloodstream. For simplicity's sake, let's just say that 100% get converted to glucose. And glucose has 3 possible fates, 3 ways that it can be used in the body. It can be used by any cell for energy, so we can produce energy with it right now. We can store it in our muscles or in our liver as glycogen to be used as fuel later when we need it, or it can go to the liver where it can be converted into fat and then stored for long-term energy needs. So it's just got these 3 places that it can go. And what we find is that each of us, you, me, everybody on the planet, has what we call a carbohydrate tolerance. It's basically a limited amount of carbohydrate that one can eat before the system will become overwhelmed and the blood sugar will rise abnormally high. And the blood sugar rising abnormally high happens for a lot of reasons related to how the insulin system changes. We're not going to dive into those in detail today. But suffice it to say that we each have an individual carbohydrate tolerance. And if you've been diagnosed with prediabetes, what that means is that at times you have overwhelmed that system. Your blood sugar has been running high. Your blood sugar has been elevated, and that has caused either your fasting blood sugar or your after meal blood sugar to be flagged, or this number called the A1C, the hemoglobin A1C, to be flagged as elevated, leading to the diagnosis of prediabetes. So limited amount of carbohydrates that we can consume without causing the blood sugar to rise abnormally high. And if you've been diagnosed with prediabetes, chances are good that you've been told, correctly so, that reducing the carbohydrate intake, reducing your carbohydrate intake will help. Because if you stop overwhelming that system, you will control your blood sugar, and that will help you to reverse prediabetes, avoid diabetes down the road. Now, one of the problems with carbohydrate tolerance is that it's not really easy for us to measure. If you ask me, hey doc, what is my carbohydrate tolerance? We can measure it, but it's going to involve having you poke your finger to measure blood sugar after meals, or even better is to use a tool called a continuous glucose monitor. There's a few of these on the market now. But a continuous glucose monitor is something that you wear on the back of your arm or your belly that records your blood sugar and shows you what it is moment to moment. These can be really powerful tools to help you actually learn about and understand what your carbohydrate tolerance is. And so for folks who are interested in having that knowledge, talk to your doctor or your provider about whether one of these tools might actually be useful for you. We're actually putting together some training to be able to help you do that. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments up above or down below. I'd love to be able to have that feedback. But what can we take away today? Gosh, if we're not measuring the carbohydrate tolerance directly, what we know is that things like body weight, in particular the amount of body fat that we have, is a marker of how our carbohydrate tolerance will be affected. So the higher our body fat, the lower the carbohydrate tolerance is in general. And we know that the hemoglobin A1C, or the average blood sugar marker, will tell us how well we've been doing with staying within that limit. But both of these, our body weight and that A1C, they kind of come late. They're down the road. And so if we think about practical advice generally is, number one, to think about food quality. So all carbohydrates are not created equal. There actually is a difference between a carb that comes from a vanilla wafer and a carb that comes from an apple. So all carbohydrates are not created equal. We want to elevate food quality. That's actually step number 3 from those 5 steps I mentioned. So elevating food quality primarily is going to involve limiting 3 ingredients: refined grains, added sugars, and highly processed foods. And it's going to involve eating more vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. Now, you don't have to eat each of those if you're on a particular style of diet that doesn't allow those. That's fine. But those all can be part of a very healthy nutrition plan: vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. So step number 1 is we want to think about elevating food quality. We want to limit the poor quality food or avoid that. We want to consume carbs that would be what we call high quality carbohydrates. Second thing is that typically we want to empirically limit the amount of carbohydrates that we consume at one time. So for most people, a target of 30 grams per meal. Some people, particularly if you have a smaller body frame size, sometimes 15 grams per meal can be a good target to shoot for. But 30 grams per meal is a great place to start. Or if you know that you're eating a lot more than that now, say that your average meal has 120 or 150 grams of carbohydrates, it may just be that dropping that by, say, 30 carbohydrates per meal, 30 grams of carbohydrate per meal, can actually get you measurable improvement. So we want to think about empirically reducing the carbohydrates from where you started when you were diagnosed with prediabetes. Now, over the long term, it turns out we can actually improve carbohydrate tolerance. So that's number 3. Think about improving it. And we do that primarily by reducing the body fat. If you're overweight, losing that extra fat mass, because that extra fat often is stored in unhealthy places around the organs in your middle, in your muscle, in your liver, and dropping 15, 20 pounds, about 10% of your body weight is often a good first target, can actually do wonders to improve your carbohydrate tolerance. Regular movement or exercise can actually help to improve your carbohydrate tolerance. Good sleep can help to improve your carbohydrate tolerance. And then again, good nutrition, those quality carbohydrates, having quality carbohydrates rather than poor quality carbohydrates, can actually be beneficial as well. And then finally, I'll just give you this one last tip for today, which is that if you know you're consuming a higher carbohydrate meal, if you're consuming a meal that you think is above your carbohydrate tolerance, say it's a special occasion, somebody's birthday party or a family reunion, you can use exercise around the time of that meal. You can use acid. So 2 tablespoons, say, of vinegar or lemon juice with the meal is actually known to decrease the spike in blood sugar that happens after that meal. And you can consume those carbohydrates with protein or with fat, ideally quality protein, quality fat, to be able to reduce the rapidness, the spike in that blood sugar level, helping your body be able to keep up with those carbohydrates. So some thoughts about carbohydrates, and in particular, I want you to think about your carbohydrate tolerance. How can you eat within that? And over the long term, how can you actually improve your carbohydrate tolerance? This will serve you well. And so as I wrap up this week, I just want to say, if this training resonates with you, if you'd like to learn more about, hey, what is the right thing to do when it comes to nutrition, movement, sleep? What is a system that I can use to help myself follow through on that consistently? Right? We're taught to use willpower to do that. We know that willpower runs out, always runs out. How can I use a system, develop a system to help me follow through on my good intention, even when I don't feel like it? That happens to everybody. And where can I get support? Where can I get support from a group or a community of people who are on this same journey? If this resonates with you, I invite you to check out our membership community at Reversing Prediabetes, reversingprediabetes.com. We have a community of folks just like you who are on this journey to reverse prediabetes together. And we would love to have you join this ever-growing small but powerful community of wonderful people who are looking to reverse prediabetes together. So again, check it out, reversingprediabetes.com. There should be a link up above or down below. And as I wrap up, as always, I wish you a great week. I wish you peace. Until next time, take care.